Okay, on today's BTS of a GTS, we are going to be looking at a photo of Shawn Mendes from Brooklyn last August from the Barclays Center. And a little special treat at the end, I'm going to be recording live with Josiah Van Dien, who is Shawn Mendes' photographer. And you know what, going in, I felt a little nervous because Josiah is really freaking good and he shoots him every night. And you know, I've been seeing his photos of Shawn for probably a year or two at that point, but we're actually going to hear more from him later, so let's just get right to the photo. Okay, so here we're using a Nikon D4 1/20th of a second f/22 ISO 640. You may ask yourself, why are you shooting an f/22? Well, if you look at the shutter speed and you look at the image, I'm obviously going for a motion blur. So f/22, that is not an aperture you'll see in concert photography too often. That's usually way too small of an aperture. Typically in concerts, you're kind of really trying to suck in as much light as possible, especially smaller shows. But this show, big production, big lights, I had to crank all the way up to f/22 to get the desired amount of motion blur. In this moment, I think it just really worked well. Like, you could see that there's an energy and movement to him, where if this was shot at maybe 500th of a second, he would be more frozen. You know, when you're doing these slower exposures, it's kind of a guessing game because you're shooting in settings that are so different than normal. So, you know, if I was normally shooting this at, like f4, 500th of a second or something like that, I understand those sort of ratios. But when you're going to f/22 at a concert, like, that's just something that I don't really ever do. Well, unless I'm shooting like this. But that's just not a common practice. Okay, moving to the raw file. The first thing I did was I cropped in just a touch, warmed it up slightly, came up 2 full stops on the exposure. Highlights came down. That guitar was looking real hot, so I brought the highlights down there. Brought the shadows up a touch. Lights down again. That guitar was just so bright and reflective. Brought the blacks up, which is not my sort of typical move, but it's a pretty blacked out scene, and I think I wanted it to not kind of go super contrasty or him look like he's up against a black wall. Texture just a touch, and saturation down just a touch. These blue lights here are wristbands of fans, so that's kind of what's going on back there. I'm shooting way off to the side, stage left. So the audience on the side are what's kind of creating this backdrop. You know, looking back at this now, I wouldn't say this is my favorite photo from the night, but it definitely was something a little different, and that's sort of the point of this. We're going to talk to Josiah in a little bit, and a little bit about what it's like being a tour photographer for Shawn, but also what it's like shooting the same show every night, which is, I kind of talk about this, but I was curious to hear what it was like for him. Especially since he had me come in to shoot the show with him. So I assume they like this photo in particular. This is one of like the 5 or 8 that they actually posted after the show. And I just thought the motion blur was just enough where you can very clearly still see that it's him, but it really still gives that like frenetic energy. I'm gonna make sure that's the right word. Fast and energetic in a rather wild and uncontrolled way. Okay, so frenetic energy. You know, I think as tour photographers specifically, like we're in this very specific genre, you know, I've become friendly with a lot of tour photographers. It's kind of fun to root for each other, but also, you know, step up your game a little bit. So there were a couple photos I wanted to ask him about, and just kind of some general questions. Him and I linked up on Instagram. We've actually only met one time. Okay, enough of me babbling. To me, if I had to pick your Shawn Mendes live photo, this photo here of him running through the crowd, and I remember me being seeing that moment and knowing how well you've captured it. Your security didn't love the idea of me maybe stepping into the line of fire. You know, I'm the new guy. They probably think they have to think that I have no idea what I'm doing to protect their artist.
I think that's more so like that instance changes every night. Whatever he does, it changes every night. You never know if he's going to run the full thing. You never know if someone's going to try and jump over the barricade because people have tried to do that before. Like, that's always a thing where, like, even me, I'm like sitting there trying to figure out, all right, cool, what can I do to not get run over tonight? Because that kid's fast.
Yeah.
That kid's 21 years old and in the best shape of like better shape than like most athletes.
Yeah,
I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm 30 and get winded after running like, down the stairs.
Mhm.
So it's one of those things where you have to like, that situation's always like a tough one because you like, for me, like with that photo, I was standing like my feet are like in between one of the barricade, like the barricade comes down and it has the metal bars to like support it. I'm like, I was standing in between one of those and like reaching, like leaning out, and then like last minute just like, all right, cool. And then like he runs by and like 3 security guards that, weigh like, that are just jacked, like big guys just like run by. And it's like, okay, cool. Glad I didn't get run over tonight.
I mean, within 1 second he is already past you. Like within a half a second he is already past you. So, to get this shot, because I've seen him move in this situation, and I know that he is not slowing down at any point from where he is to when he goes by you.
No.
So this, I mean, it's just everything about this picture. Like, this is a picture that, like, okay, we were only going to talk for maybe 10 or 15 minutes. We ended up talking for an hour, and there was a lot of good stuff. So I'm going to release the long version of this in the coming weeks. So be on the lookout for that. Okay, thanks for watching. Third Alpha Change. Thank you. Thank you.